Morning. This is the third part of History, Lesson 1, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe. In the previous two parts, we have already discussed the French Revolution and the changes evolved through that revolution. Then we read how nationalism spread from France to other European countries and also about the Napoleonic Code and rise and fall of Napoleon. Now in this video, we shall learn about the structure of European society, what were the incidents that took place there, and who were the people lived there. So let us start our topic, the making of nationalism in Europe. Earlier there were no modern states like Germany, Italy, Switzerland that we see today. In fact, they were divided into several small kingdoms till mid 18th century, and these kingdoms were ruled by kings or the monarchs. The concept of nation states did not exist at all. Some of the prominent empires in Europe were the autocratic Ottoman Empire that ruled over Eastern and Central Europe and in Greece, and the second one was the Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria-Hungary. Due to the cultural differences among the European people, there were no collective identity or a common culture. And this was the drawback of the kingdom. However, the difference in cultural background and desire to use the ideas of a French Revolution led people towards the common goal, that is nationalism. Now let us see the structure of European society, which was divided into three parts: aristocracy, peasants and serfs, and the last was the new middle class or the working class. So let us read about the aristocracy first. And before we learn about aristocracy, we must know who were the aristocrats. So aristocrats are the upper class of people with hereditary ranks and titles. Or we can say that these are the people who belongs to the higher class in the society. So during the 19th century, the landed aristocracy was small in number, or they were in less population. But this class was influential in the society. They dominated the social as well as the political spheres, and they were desperately trying to regain their positions. Members of this class all over Europe were connected to each other because of their similar way of life and intermarriages. They owned largest estates in the countryside and town houses. And this is the group who had all the rights over there. French was the common language spoken by them for their diplomacy and high society. So this is about aristocracy. Now peasants and serfs. Though the majority of European population was made up of peasants and serfs, still they had no rights. In Western Europe, most of the land was tilted by tenants and small owners, while in Eastern and Central Europe, estates were cultivated by the serfs. Now the third class in the society was the new middle class, and basically they believe in liberal ideology. Now how they emerge? With the advent of industrialization in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, new social groups came into existence. These groups were the working class population and the middle class. These groups depended on market production for their livelihoods. The middle class had a free-thinking mindset. The ideas of nationalism led them towards an aim to fill a gap between the aristocracy and the other classes. They hoped to end the autocratic rule and wanted to form a national government of the people. The educated middle class of the Europe was deeply influenced by the idea of liberty from the French Revolution, and as a result, the concept of liberalism was formed. So, what did liberal nationalism stands for? The word liberalism derived from the Latin root liber, meaning free. And the ideologies of liberal nationalists were first, freedom of individual and equality of all before the law. And this was the basic principle of liberalism. The second ideology was government by consent of people. Third, there should be one constitution and citizens choose their representatives. So we can say that representative and parliamentary form of government, this was the another principle of liberalism. Fourth, end of autocracy and clerical privileges. Now, autocracy means autocracy is a system of government by a single person or small group that has unlimited power or authority. And the clerical privileges, these are implied privileges enjoyed by the nobility and aristocratic section of society. Now, fifth ideology, inviolability of private property, means protection of private property or private property was not violated by anyone. So this is the last ideology of liberal nationalism. Now let us understand liberalism in political sphere and in economic sphere. The five ideologies we just read, they are also added in these two spheres. So first, political sphere. First point is individual freedom and equality before law. Second, government by consent. Third, a constitution and representative government through parliament. Fourth, end of autocracy and clerical privileges. Fifth, equality before law does not mean universal suffrage. Now let us understand what does this mean. As we read in class 9th that voting rights were given only to the propertied men and not to the non-propertied men and women. So liberal ideology does not mean that under equality before law, every person get equal voting rights. Now, economic sphere. First is inviolability of private property means protection of private property. Second, freedom of markets. It means reduction in tax or removed restrictions on export and import. And the third, abolition of state imposed restrictions on the movement of goods and capitals so that they could grow through the trade. So these are the ideologies of liberal nationalists, but still people face many challenges. The Napoleonic Code had tried to facilitate it. However, this code was not practiced completely. Let us see why. During the 19th century, freedom of movement, goods and capital become a strong demand of the emerging middle class. The Napoleonic Code, though revolutionary for its time, was unable to address the growing needs of the industrialists. So they face challenges at that time. And the first challenge they faced was to complicate matters, each region had its own system of weights and measures. These situations viewed as obstacles to economic growth and exchange. Now, the second challenge, the middle class argued for the creation of a unified economic territory to facilitate or allow the unhindered movement of goods, people, and capital. Now, let us understand this with the help of an example. At that time, if a trader moved from one state to other, then he had to pay custom duties or taxes to every state or at every state boundaries. So that is why middle class demanded for a unified economic territory that allowed free movement of goods, capitals and people. So in 1834, a trade union or custom union was formed at the initiative of Prussia. The objective of this custom union was trade freely or ease the movement of goods and services through reduction in tax and remove trade barriers. The second objective, earlier the number of currency was 30 and now they were reduced from 30 to 2. Apart from this, a railway network was initiated which enhanced mobility and communication between the economies. All these changes helped in the growth of nationalist sentiments. And this custom union, which was formed at the initiative of Prussia, was called Zollverein. And it was joined by most of the German states at that time. So, liberal nationalism was another step towards nationalism in Europe, which we just finished. But there was a challenge before them, and the challenge was the conservatism, which we read in the next part. Now, the questions formed from this part. First, what is liberalism? Second, explain the concept of liberal nationalism which developed in Europe in early 18th century. And the last, what was Zollverein? So that's all for this topic, and these are the questions from this part. Thank you.